Now, I'm going to go click on a second here. It says, if anyone wants to sue you, take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. All right? If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with you 2 miles. Now, the first one, shared before, that was based, I don't want to go into that right now. Actually, it's a really good one, but we'll go back another time. And the last one is rather interesting. It says, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Do you know who could force you to go 1 mile by law? Soldiers, Roman soldiers. Rome was the occupying force. They had conquered Israel. And so their soldiers had to travel by foot. They didn't have cars, jeeps or any of those things. They didn't have, didn't have enough horses for everybody. So they had to carry this huge pack with all their gear they needed. Think about that. All the armor, all the things, food and eating. And so you could, by law, make a citizen carry, not a citizen, they weren't citizens. The people who lived in the lands that you occupied, that you controlled, make them carry your backpack 1 mile. But the law, trying to not put too much of a burden on people, said you can only make a person carry 1 mile for you, and then you have to take it back. So Jesus isn't simply saying, go farther. It's and show that you're doing it because you love them. The picture is supposed to be the soldier who you walked a mile and now you refuse to take it off, and he knows he'd get in trouble if you go farther with it, and he's like chasing you down the road as you're running with his pack, trying to get back so he doesn't get in trouble. Right? King and Gandhi both talk about this when they look at this way of Jesus and said, the whole point we're doing is that we're actually trying to provoke a response. We want to show what's going on that's hidden. When Martin Luther King would lead the stuff that he did, he'd often say, people would say, you're an outside agitator, you're coming in and you're stirring up things. And he'd say, no. He said, all this stuff was already going on. We just put the smiley face on it, right? We pretended it. It was nice. You ever talk to someone and they're just like they're raking you over the coals. They do it so nice, right? They say, yeah. I'm sorry, we just can't handle that issue for you right now. We do that. We pretend that things are nice when they're not. And he said, the point is you need to make it visible. You need to show it. Now, I'm going to confess a little something here. Yesterday, Christy and I were at Gaston School for their carnival. We were making cotton candy. Lots of fun. I had cotton candy all the way here, and you're in there, doing the thing around here. And the custodian who also works here was there that day. We were there till almost well past 5 o'clock. And she said, we'll see you tomorrow, and I know you're going to be in your regular place. And we said, no, we're going to be over in the night spot. And she said, well, I heard someone say they thought you had to be back over here. We're sure if you're going to be allowed there. I'm like, I said, well, no one contacted us, and so we're going with that's where we're supposed to be, right? Because that's what we were told by phone. No one called us, So now, we could have come in this morning and just set up here instead. Said, well, just in case, we're not going to go over there. But we went with it and said, that's where we were told to go. And so the gentleman came in and yelled at us and kicked us out. Right? Now, you can say, well, you should have just accepted it. It's a quote that I didn't put up on here, another quote by Gandhi, and I think it fits well with what Jesus is saying here, saying, he said, what you cannot do is accept injustice from anyone. Right? Now, I said, we could have just come in here and been nice and set up things here and say, well, we've heard that we weren't sure we could be in there. But no one contacted us. No one went through the channels they were supposed to. No one let us know. I remember, like I said, at Christmas, we had the same thing happen. And actually, we had it happen a year ago. It was a year ago in May when they came, finally someone said, oh, by the way, did we tell you you can't be in there all summer? You're going to have to find another place for the summer. Do you remember that? And we had the hustle to try and figure out where we ended up in the band room. People kept not telling us and not telling us. And so basically, they do things here and don't figure they have to let us know and we'll have to deal with it. And you know what? You get kind of tired of that, don't you? And to me, that's what we're talking about. Now, this may not be a big thing. Yet it is an important thing because this is one of the things that we have that happen to us daily, the little things that keep saying, you know what, you really don't matter. You're not important enough for us to contact. You're not important enough, to have a say in these things. And the things that Jesus is saying is not that you have to put down those other people who do this to you. He's saying you need to resist anything that says some person is less than they are because every single person is a child of God. And we need to resist that. So I guess one of the things I'm wondering, because, as I said, I'm sort of doing a little bit off the cuff, is what do we do with this? How do we respond? That could be kind of fun. No. Wayne had an interesting point. What is that, Wayne?
Which one?
You know, part of our agreement with the schools, we allow the band to use all of our equipment here for their events. And in fact, this afternoon, we're going to set all this equipment up over by Casa Grande, right? Yeah. Now, now the band has nothing to do with that, so I don't know that I would want to do that to them. But I'm certainly going to share some with them, saying, you know, we have people expressing that we're not happy the way the school treated us, and wondering, you know, this is something we, you know, should do. Not in that way, I would say, more carefully. Just the point of saying, you know, this isn't right. We really appreciate your putting a word in that. But, you know, one of the things I shared, they actually had the head of the facility department came down after the other gentleman left. She was much nicer. She'd have been here, we might still be able to be there at least for today. But, you know, I said, you know, she said, what can I do for you? I said, you know, the way we were treated, that what we want is that we want you to make it so that we're in there. You know, that is what would be right. You know, so we need to talk. I know this is nothing should be decided at the spur of the moment, but I think we need to look at the way of Jesus and to say, you know, if we cannot accept injustice from anybody, you know, if we need to resist injustice without having to strike back, we need to say, how is it that we can make this clear that this isn't right the way we've been treated, and that we just want what's right to be done. And my feeling would be for us to be able to be there, and it'd be nice to get an apology from the folks who did not treat us quite as nicely as they could. Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's the this is interesting. This is my being on the school board part of me thing too. This room was redone by Aramark, which is does all the food. All right. And they also redid the night spot. And they actually had to do it. It turns out they're supposed to reinvest in the communities they're in, and they hadn't been doing that. And I think that was kind of brought forward. So they did this, which was nice that they did it, but I think they had to be kind of pushed to do it. So they redid that whole room, which is the room is set up as like for students who do well in school, to have like a place they go and hang out. That's why it's such a nice area. And the person we talked to, and it's been kind of changing because they're in transition. This is like their third head custodial supervisor buildings person. That came to us. The person I talked to was the second one 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's been changing. All right, this is part of that. But they did not talk to the person from Aramark who feels that they are in charge of that area and can tell people who, you know, if they can be there or not. You know, one of the things I share with them is that, you know, this is like churches do this sometimes. People like to donate things to churches. I know a church who has a room that kids are not allowed in because the person who donated the money to refurbish it doesn't want kids in there. All right? And one of the things, right, interesting, they want it messed up. So one of the things, you know, we understood is that once you've given something to an organization, it's theirs, right? And how can you tell the community who supports this, I mean, you know, what is it? It's government by the people, for the people, of the people. They don't, there's something that maybe like that, I don't know what the issue is, or.
I mean, we're such a rowdy group.
I know, right? I think some of it's control of, you know, this is my sacred space, and yeah. Well, I was wrestling with that because it could be one of two things. Either it's a sign we should be there.
I remember praying about something like this a while ago.
Right.
When we were all together.
Okay. Well, I'm torn because part of me is saying maybe it's a sign that we need to stand up and not accept it. Maybe it's a sign of either way. So we'll see what God does in it. But I do think that we need to our concerns we know. Yes. Yeah, we do. I mean, the equipment is part of that payment, and part of it is, yeah, towards the custodian. Yeah.
Where we use, it's a lot smaller space for them to have to clean up when we're done.
Right. Yeah. It's much to go around.
Why not just draft up something that says you will use it this day, this time, and if it's not like your liking.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, we actually have a contract we filled out for this space. One of the things they point out is our contract says cafeteria. And I said, well, that's why we emailed it to you, and they told us who to go through, and they okayed it. But they okayed it by phone, not email, so we didn't have it in writing.
Working in a college,
Yeah.
and working for a corporation that contracts through that college, Aramark probably does own all of that stuff. Beloit College might
Right.
not own that. So when when our company is in our place,
Right.
we have to. It's not, even though it's in there.
Right.
It's not ours. It's somebody else's. So I don't know if.
Well, they said it came through government funds, so I'm not sure how that works.
Stuff comes through
Right.
the government funds.
Yeah, I think that's the issue here, is that this is unlike a college, which is even, this is a public institution owned by the community. I mean, there's things too, like if they rent it to anyone else, they have to rent it to everybody who wants to use it. So if they rent it to anyone else, I really think the issue is more that the person who, because of the disruption and who's leading and whatnot, and we had the same things in the past that they don't think about it, but the person who okayed it wasn't the person who felt they were in charge of it, and they didn't like that, and so it was more that kind of response. It was just a lot of people who were angry about how they were treated in the process and let the anger come out. There's a verse in the Bible that says, don't let the sun go down in your anger. And so I think this whole harnessing, I think this is what Jesus is talking about, saying, look, it's okay to be angry. And they were angry because it wasn't done, but they didn't deal with it well, and we got to deal with that.
So they struck back.
Right. But they struck back at us rather than the people who were at fault. So, but I think we still need to let them know that's not appropriate. And my feeling would be, at least share basically our expectation is that we would be able to be in there, we would treat it well, and maybe even to get our funds back for today for the hassle, because I be honest, and I don't, even right now, I don't feel, centered like I like to be for worship. It is very throwing to have a guy yelling at you as you're trying to get ready for worship and you're already behind because he's mad he had to get up on Sunday early and come and tell us because no one called us. I say that. Oh, good. So.
I say write some sort of strong written letter because then it's in writing. It's exactly what we do.
Well, how about we'll have a few of us, well, we're all doing, many of us are doing cookout today. We can talk some there too, but maybe we can put something together and send out by email for everybody to say, yeah, this is a good one.
We all sign it.
We could do that. That's a good point.
For those living in the city of Beloit, they could also put on there a taxpayer.
That's
I'm gonna add, yeah,
right.
and
Yeah,
then
that's-
share it with, I don't know, if you wanna go as far as to share it with a certain newspaper.
Well, I think usually the best way is to go through the process of the chain, and the principle here.
I don't-
But we actually, the contract is with the school board. That's who we sent to originally. So.
I'd
you know,
share it with them.
Yeah.
we could do that.
Take
So yeah, but I think yes, if it goes beyond that, something to consider, and not for the
it. Go to the paper.
I was riding my bike a couple days ago, and I'm coming down Portland, and this person pulled up ahead. They were coming up ahead of me. There were 5 cars at the stop sign. They were the 5th, and they pulled right up by the curb, even though they were going straight, so that I couldn't go by them as a bike. I had to wait for all 5 cars to go. Right? And I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to bless them. And then I thought, you know what? I would not be doing that to the right person. So I did. So I knew it would be intended as a blessing. So
I give him a piece.
you're that's right. Oh, Jesus. So I think I appreciate your input, and I apologize because this is not the way I intended worship to go today. So pray for me too. But I think that's helpful. So we'll seek to be a blessing and not a person.
Yes.
But also, I think we need to stand up for what's right and say you can't take me and treat it that way. So the Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Thank you. Let's pray. God, we thank you that you are good and that you are God. That you who came down as one of us, who pitched your tent, as it says in the Gospel of John, among us, who made your home with us, who showed us a new way of living, a way of loving, who invited us to live as people who bless and not curse. And we ask that you would help us to do this, but also to remember that we too are your children, that it doesn't help for us to be demeaned, to resist always, you call us, to resist always that which demeans us as human beings. To turn the other cheek is to resist, not by striking back, but by refusing to accept that anyone is inferior, even ourselves. So we ask that you would help us in this journey. Thank you that you continue to move in us. And we ask you that this would show us where it is, or what it is you are calling us to. Is that where we should be on Sunday morning? Is there someplace else that we should be? What is it we are supposed to be about as a community? And I just ask that this day, that the words that I shared were not my own, but yours, that you were at work in the midst of the discussion that we had, guiding us and leading us and speaking through us in our hearts. We ask that you might continue to do so. In Jesus' name. And all God's people say.